Hey team, welcome back to the Wilson Combat Channel. We hope you'll subscribe and ring the notification bell. That'll let you know when the next episode is dropping. We're going to talk today about introducing the new people to the gun. In the last 18 months, with the pandemic and everything else, it's been estimated that we have as many as 10 million new gun owners in this country alone. Now, some of those are going to be within your ambit, and they're going to figure out you are the resident gun guy or gal and come to you for advice on getting started. After damn near 50 years of teaching this to others, I'm going to offer a couple of suggestions, just kind of like a busman's holiday, watching how somebody else does it who's done it for a while. First, with your new shooters, they're going to fear this thing like it was a spitting cobra. I found one of the many good uses for a dummy gun, an inoperable clone of the real thing, is to get them used to the handling without them inadvertently doing something that traumatizes them and interferes with the training. Let's say you were the instructor, I was the new shooter, and I suddenly went, oh, am I supposed to? And I realized I've pointed a real gun at another human being out of the gate. Some of them are going to be, I'll never touch one again. When they know it's a dummy gun, it's much less traumatic, and it's easier for you to get them past that and make a positive safety lesson out of it. It's a good, easy way to show them how to properly grasp the gun in a grasp that's going to fit their hands and their firearm, where their finger goes to the trigger and when, how their finger comes off the trigger and when. And you can progress from there, if you don't mind the investment, into a training pistol, like the CERT or this one that comes from Smart Firearms. It emits a laser. This will be the target. It's got a small, mild report. And they can practice by looking over the gun at the target, watching that little red dot appear, learn their trigger. They'll see when they jerk like this, their dot moves that far. And when they smoothly work the trigger, the dot's going to hit in the same place. And again, you don't have the traumatization of the student if they inadvertently make a mistake. When you progress to the real gun, always start dry fire. And tell them always, whenever they pick up a new gun, to check sight and feel. Sight and feel is important because the second check not only is one more verification that the gun is safely unloaded, but the time is going to come in their life when they have to check a gun in the dark or with compromised vision. With a semi-automatic pistol, you hold it in the dominant hand, and the little finger of the support hand, generally for most of us the narrowest of the 10 digits, probes the magazine well to make sure that the magazine is all the way out, probes the firing chamber to make sure nothing's been left behind in there. You'll start them off with dry fire. Lock them in on their given chosen target, tell them to watch the sights. You'll be watching too for muzzle drift, the gun jerking, anything of that nature. One good way to habituate them is simply placing your hand over theirs and allowing your finger to pull theirs. A whole lot of you out there can probably about remember the first time when you figured out what a really good trigger pull felt like. And ask yourselves, my God, how many thousands of rounds did I piss away reinforcing bad habits before I figured out how to press this damn trigger? If our finger can show their finger on the very first day what it feels like to break a good shot, and make no mistake, sense of touch is what we're talking about here, that is probably the fastest shortcut to good shooting that I've come across yet. And I owe that to the late great champion, world champion, Ray Chapman. Basically, the big thing that you'll find, and most of you already have, the trigger finger placement. Ever since they were little kids, if they picked up a cap gun to play cowboys and Indians or cops and robbers or army in the backyard, their finger always went to the trigger. Every one of these things was designed to be shot. So it was designed to be comfortable with the hand in this position, finger on trigger. By the time they've come to you, they have seen thousands of depictions on TV and movie screens of people with guns. And you know, you as a professional cringe from the screen when you see everybody running around with their guns cocked and their fingers on the triggers. That's in the subconscious of your new shooter, even if this is the first time they've actually touched one. So the big thing for you to focus on is trigger. Obviously, muzzle. Any of us who've ever run a shooting range, finger, muzzle are the two things we've had to yell the most often. Tell them from the beginning, Colonel Jeff Cooper's 4 rules of safety. And by the way, it appalls me how many people use those 4 rules and don't attribute it to Colonel Jeff Cooper, who put it together circa 1960. Paraphrased, it's treat every weapon as if it's loaded. We tell them, never let the muzzle point at anything you're not prepared to see destroyed or to destroy yourself. I kind of changed that in the teaching environment. I told them, look, I don't know you yet, so don't point at anything I'm not prepared to see destroyed, and we'll get along fine. They tell you, don't touch the trigger until you're on target. On target, on trigger, off target, off trigger. I think that needs to be modified. If they ever have to take someone at gunpoint in a self-defense situation, they're on target. We've told them on target, on trigger. That finger's on there, and perhaps with a striker-fired gun like this, they're starting to take up the slack without realizing it, because when fight-or-flight response hits, so does vasoconstriction. Blood flow is redirected from the extremities into the major muscle groups in the internal viscera to fuel the furnace for extreme exertion. They don't realize that's fingers on the trigger, and somebody yells, "Hey!" And in front of whoever yelled, "Hey," they killed an unarmed man who was surrendering to them. So on target, on trigger, I don't think is enough. I tell my students, you will not let that finger inside the trigger guard unless and until you are in the very act of intentionally discharging the weapon. And as I said, the laser emitting guns, the SIRT pistol, SIRT, or this one from Smart Firearms, are really useful training tools for that sort of thing. Finally, the 4th rule, always be certain of your backstop and certain of your target. It's real easy for them to get out on the range, figure, whoa, I saw on YouTube that kneeling is a stable position, but the target was set here, the berm is low, and now they're kneeling, shooting upwards. They don't realize their bullets are going through that target and over the berm. They'll be concentrating on the gun. You, the instructor, need to be concentrating on the whole thing. When the actual shooting starts, I have my students first learn the stance itself, empty hands. Then we'll go to dry fire. Then we'll lock and load. And on live fire, the first run will be slow fire, taking their time, going for a perfect sniper rescue shot every single round. The next run will be timed fire, and whatever we're doing or trying to accomplish, the distance, the size of the target will determine the time frame. Let's say it was 6 rounds and 8 seconds from the NRA Police Service pistol course. Be boom, 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 an unhurried pace that lets them keep the trigger still smooth, but still puts some time pressure on them. The final would be rapid fire, and we define in my classes, we define rapid fire as fast as you can hit that particular target. The 8-inch circle on the IDPA target, the 8-inch steel plate that's 11 yards downrange, or whatever the target may be. The further back you get, the smaller the target is, the slower rapid fire becomes. The slow fire is where they learn, with this particular stance and technique, here is how much muzzle rise I'm going to get and how quickly the sights recover. Here is how steady the gun seems to be on target. The time fire, I try to pace that, give them some sort of preview, some sort of dress rehearsal for their final shooting qualification to get sort of get them locked in on the time frame. And finally, the rapid fire is their quest for personal excellence. How fast can I get those hits where I need them to be? When they try different techniques, a progression like that will let them very early figure out technique A is working way better for me than technique B or technique C. We start off with a focus on safety, but the more we get into techniques, the more we have to adapt the size and shape of the hands, the size and physical strength of the shooter, eye dominance vis-a-vis hand dominance, and things of that nature. Above all, we want to get them safe with the gun, comfortable with the gun, and confident enough that they want to continue with it. Not false confidence, but the confidence that says, if I do this right, I can do it perfect, and I want to do it better, so I want to stay with it and continue my learning progression. Be there for them when they do that. Be there to follow up with them. Let them know they can give you a phone call if they're having some issue, or meet you again for another training session. Basically, we've got 10 million new people with guns. Someone needs to teach them. Someone is within your circle, within your reach, to make them competent and confident. We have a responsibility to be there for them and to impart that competence and to be patient with them, but stern. And if that sounds a little like parent-child, well, so does any teacher-student relationship. Doesn't matter whether it says firearms instructor on your business card or not. If you share this knowledge with others, you are a firearms instructor, and we all share that same responsibility. I can tell you after about a half a century of doing it myself, it's a satisfying occupation. And whether you do it for love or for money, you're doing something righteous. Thank you. Keep your students safe. Keep your people safe. If you're interested in taking training from me, check the website, MassadAyoobGroup.com. We teach all over the country. But continue your own training as well. At American Society of Law Enforcement Trainers, our motto was Qui docet, dice. He who teaches, learns. Sharing with others is going to sharpen your own skill and your own abilities and your own knowledge. Sort of like the double stamping on a coin. It sharpens everything up and makes you a little bit better for having taught it. Thank you. Stay safe.